Welcome to Check In with Jason Lauritsen, where we explore how to create human, connected workplaces that employees love and that fuel organizational success. Each week, I invite someone who's leading the way in this work to join me for a conversation to help educate and inspire us. My guest today is Steve Browne. Steve is the Chief People Officer for LaRosa's, a family-owned pizzeria and Italian restaurant chain in Ohio. He's a former national board member of 𝗍𝗲, a frequent conference keynote speaker, and the author of 3 books, HR on Purpose, HR Rising, and HR Unleashed. Steve, thank you for being here. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing great, Jason. It is so fun to be back together. I love this.
Like podcast is always a good excuse to get together and have a conversation. So I will say, just for those that don't know you yet, they're about to, I don't think I've ever met anyone more passionate about or committed to this work that we're about to talk about. You have been making work more human since before it was the cool thing to do, and I have always been inspired by how you approach what you do. So I am so excited to unpack that, dig in a little bit to what you do. But before we do that, I would love to, check in a little bit about your work, sort of what you do, both maybe at the office, but also more broadly for HR. So can you tell us a little bit about what does Steve's working world look like?
It's been changing over the past couple of years, ever since that big global thing happened. It really shifted quite a bit. It was interesting. I've been sharing these things, like you said, for years and years and years. And due to an unfortunate incident, my boss passed away. In 2020, unexpectedly had a heart attack, and he and I were tight. I thought he was tight with everybody. I was wrong. He was tight with me. Now, he was an executive of the office and a legend, honest legend. But I thought the same investment he was making in me, he was making with everybody, and he didn't. And all of a sudden, he's gone. So then it's like, hi. You get to be the person that's going to make us do these things. So I've come alongside the family. We are a family-run business. We've been in business now 70 years this year, which is an anomaly because most restaurants last on average 10, and very few make generational shifts, and we're working towards our 3rd generation. So now what I'm doing is organizational design and making a people-first company come to life. We've always been people-first, but now we're making it happen. So my role is to be strategic and drive the people initiatives so that we do better as a company. It's not people stuff. It's people doing things to make the company better.
Mm. And that is, that's, I think, one of the things I've always loved about having conversations with you about this work. And even, when I was on the other side, when I was sitting in the chair, I think that was one of the things you and I always shared in common, was just the sort of very pragmatic view of remembering why we're doing this work. It's not kumbaya. This is we're actually trying to run a business here, and we can do that in a way that's good for people. So thank you for that. And it's interesting that, it's funny. I thank you for the context of kind of what happened, because, this is stuff they don't, that's not on the 𝗍𝗲 exam, how to handle what you have been going through the last few years. So there's a lot there that we can talk about. And I suspect we're going to get into that in a minute, I think, kind of how you're approaching leadership in the organization. But I'm curious, Steve, how did you find your way? I don't know that I've ever even asked you this. How did you find your way into this work? How did you find your way into HR? I don't know the Steve Browne origin story, I don't think.
The origin story, like a Marvel movie or something.
You are an HR superhero, Steve. Let's just own it.
I was going to go into chemistry when I was coming out of college, or going into college. I went to chemical engineering first. After the first semester, I should have known after the first semester. I was in a class that said they weeded engineering students out. And they told you it's a weeding out course. So I walked into the final with a D- average. I think I had like a 16 in the course. And I'm like, well, So I didn't study. My friends and I went out the night before. We had a time. I walked in, scribble, 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 turned it in, told the professor I thought this was a horrible way to teach in front of the entire class. Ended up getting a B plus. And I said, what's going on? And he says, well, we do this and then we curve people at the end. And I said, this is evil freaking stuff. I'm out. So I went into chemistry, and then I was in an experiment one day. This is kind of an origin story like in a lab. And a friend of mine was an honors student in chemistry, and he had like 100.5% in the class. I mean, honors tutorial, great kid. But we were working with benzene, which is a carcinogen, and he was sick. And I said, hey, I don't think he should be here around the carcinogen. And the teacher said, it's none of your business. And I said, it kind of is. I said, so this is what we're going to do. I'm going to take my friend home and get him better. And you can fail me. I don't care. That's here nor there. But this is wrong. If you're not going to take care of him, who cares what he learns? And the guy did fail me on the lab. Let my partner take it over. Of course, he got an A. And I said, I'm in the wrong business, man. Something's wrong. And so my mom, I was almost going to fail out of college. It was terrible. I was the valedictorian of my high school. And I was one semester away from failing out. And she says, why aren't you doing something with people? And I said, what do you mean? She goes, you don't get it, do you? She says, everywhere I see, you're with people. Church, school, community, you name it. At OU, all you do is people stuff. So find a field with people. So I took a course in interviewing. I took several courses. And in the interviewing course, it was who should interview and who should be the interviewer. Who's the interviewee, who's the interviewer. And the class said, we think Steve should interview himself. And I went, oh, that's a sign. And so I went into recruiting like a lot of people did when people came out of college back in the mid-'80s, because it was a way to get your feet in the field. And then found out I didn't fit the culture I was in, but we didn't talk about culture back then. We didn't talk about work environment or people first. We talked about work and role and title and level. It was all traditional hoo-ha. It was back then, it was traditional hoo-ha. We were just afraid to call it that.
Yep.
And so from then, after that, every job I've had past that, I've been able to be in more entrepreneurial roles where I could step in and make differences regardless of my level. And now, as of last week, I've been at LaRosa's for 18 years, which is mind-blowing. So it's been a long journey, a wonderful journey. But now that I got out of the traditional lane, I don't want to ever go back.
So as you reflect on all of the stuff that you've been able to do and all the work you get to do in your role, what is the thing that you love most about your work?
Conversations with people. I spend the majority of my day talking, very little doing. What's really interesting is majority of companies are made up of doers, and thank goodness they are. Honest to goodness, thank goodness they are. So people that really do produce. And you and I have been in this long enough about, HR is the evil overhead, and it's such old school thinking. We never have learned how to embrace that we are the pass-through, not the gatekeeper, the pass-through. We're the connective tissue of the organization. So when I can bring operations and marketing together, that makes sense. When I can bring the executive team together and be the person who's the shepherd of that, that makes sense. So anytime that I'm doing people work that's moving us forward, jazzed. I'm just telling you, can't get enough. Right before I came on with you, I'm still so doggone old school. I have flip charts, and I take flip charts to every meeting. And now people are like, oh, freaking flip chart. And then it was funny is a few months ago, one of the guys goes, can I write on the flip chart? I said, I don't know. And so it's funny for us. It's our method. So, in the world of AI and all these crazy things, it's not that I'm against it, but you need to find out the method that works best for your company. So I speak my company's language. And I don't think enough HR people understand that or embrace that. My role is to help that language come to life. And when that language comes to life, it builds the culture. When it builds the culture, we have relationships, and it just keeps going.
And that's always stood out. I mean, the moments I remember having conversations with you over the years about different situations. And I always remember, like, your default is always, like, if you're talking, like, people will bring up some issue they're having with an employee, or how do you handle this? And it's like, I talk to them. I mean, that was always it. And I'm like, yes, this is what it's about. This is what people need to hear. Like, how about we talk to people? That seems like a novel idea. So, Steve, one quick question for fun before we get into digging deep into some of your work, some cool stuff you're doing. What do you do for fun when you aren't being an HR superhero?
It's odd. I go talk. It's today. So yesterday we do a thing called Adopt a Class, and we have fifth graders, and I get to go and I get to be the fun one that says, here's the value of being good. So it's an inner city school here in Cincinnati, and we adopt them and we do programs with them throughout their school year. And I get to go with fifth graders and say, ha ha, can't get enough of it. And then this morning I spoke at my HR chapter for lunch. I spoke at the Gehring Center, which is for next generation business leaders, on employer branding and the importance of employer branding, and got to spin it a little and bend people's minds. And then I get to talk to you. I mean, this is what I do.
You are an evangelist of this work in the truest sense of the word. So really grateful for that, Steve. I appreciate all the work that you do. We all do. We benefit from it. So thank you for that. I'm glad that's your hobby. That's it's good for everybody. All right. So let's click in a little bit on some of the cool stuff. I mean, we could talk at a high level conceptually about HR all day, or talking generalities about conversations, but I think you have and continue to do some really interesting stuff. And I think in particular, the reason that I am always fascinated is that you're doing interesting stuff, but you're also doing it in the context of a restaurant business, which is a challenging place to do some of this stuff, given to the nature of the business and how competitive it is. So, the thing I'd like to dig in on is you've shared with me a little bit about this kind of collaborative leadership approach that you are using, implementing, sort of locking in. And I'd love for you to tell us a little bit about what is it, I guess. Let's start there. What is it? How is it different? How did you get headed down this path?
I've always struggled with top-down models, because I don't know how they work, how they function. I understand how they're designed. I mean, everybody goes, well, you just have this person over this person over this person. But I've never seen the relationship that brings, other than flowing work. Here's the work. I'm going to give it to Jason. I'm above you. You do the work. That part I get. Everything else falls apart. So when we got together as a family, and I'm not part of the family, okay, but I met with the two owners and their son after Kevin's passing, and they said, we need to reset. And I said, okay. Now, just to be clear, we used the word before someone else did, because we were the ones that did it. And I'm not being harsh. I'm just saying, this is the truth. We decided to do this. Mm-hmm. And they said, so what do you think? We don't know how to move forward. We don't want to keep doing the same thing. We can't keep having a point person model. So a lot of companies have a point person model. Whoever is at the top of XYZ function, everything goes through that person or set of people, and it's very narrow. So like in most hierarchies, fewer people. And unless that person is incredibly competent and has a capacity the size of an ocean, it will fail. It will leak constantly. And there's very little development involved. It goes through Kevin. It goes through Kevin. well, now we don't have Kevin. What do we do? And what's interesting is by developing this model, we actually allowed one of our owners to retire. And we didn't see it come. We planned for it. He's like, I think I'm good. I think we're ready. And I was like, oh, okay, this is cool. So I'm very practical and pragmatic, like you said. So we reformatted why we meet, when we meet, how we meet. So we started at the executive level. Now, I'm not trying to be contrary. We didn't do it because of hierarchy, but these people are in roles that are responsible for the largest part of the company. So you got to start with that. Yeah. It's not ignoring the front line and don't get there. Don't do this either or stuff. And I said, okay, so the first thing we're going to do is Michael, CEO, you're not going to run the exec meetings anymore. And he goes, well, what do you mean? I'm the CEO. It's like, no, you're the person who sets the vision and direction of our company. And if you're running the meeting, no one else talks. So no one else talks. And let's say you're wrong. Let's say, you're partially right. And you're not getting all the different perspectives you should get. So what I want to do is we're going to have facilitated leadership. I'm going to run the meetings. And he goes, what? I said, yeah, I'll run the meetings. And we're going to meet on a regular basis, no agenda. Just going to talk. And he says, why? I said, your exec team doesn't know each other. Your exec team doesn't know how to act with each other. We talk about each other all the time. But if we're going to run the company together collectively, we should work collectively. So we're going to get to know each other. We're going to work on work. We're not getting there. We have a bunch of social time. It's about work. So we started that 4 years ago. First meeting, people are like, so what's the agenda? I go, don't have one. Why not? Don't worry. Now here's what's funny. We have one, but I keep it back here, like here. And I'm not hiding it from people, but a lot of people are very linear. And they look at agendas like bullet point, bullet point, bullet point. Bullet point 4 interests me. The first 3 don't. I'm going to check out. And then this, I need you there all the time. I need you to be the talent that you say you are. And we need to find out if you are, to be honest. And they are. They're wonderful. Now people are like, hey, I have the CNC. We called it the communication and connection meeting, which is, way HRE. But we call it the CNC meeting. And now it's like, hey, what's up on Wednesday? We got CNC? I go, yeah, we have CNC. And it's become our language. And people go, and all they have to do, Jason, is show up. They're already got the talent. They've already got the responsibility. They're doing tons of work, but I need them to be present. After that, we started doing more intentional individual development. So we're starting at the executive level. We're moving to the next level now after 4 years, which seems like a long time. But honestly, we've been in business 70, so we're doing okay. But now that we're doing individual development, we're having people truly be equipped in order to move forward instead of just giving them a role or assigning them something. And we're trying to teach them the collaboration model. It was funny, in my presentation today, I used the great sage Vanilla Ice, who said, stop, collaborate, and listen. That's what we do. So we take time to stop, make time for each other, collaborate as a unit, listen to each other, and move the company forward. And it's working.
So that I'm sure if I'm listening to this and I'm in a more traditional, place, my head is starting to vibrate, right? No agenda. What are you talking about? The CEO, you're telling the CEO that he's not running the meeting. Like, how does that work? And so I'm wondering if let's play out a little bit how this looks. Let's take it out of the executive suite for a minute, because I want to come back to that in a minute. But for now, this approach, I know you've cascaded it because it's happening at the executive level. It cascades throughout the organization. Other people are doing it. It shows up in other examples or other situations. Can you share an example or two of what this looks like, or how business as usual has been disrupted or shifted to this new collaborative model in other places? I know you have, I'm sure, a whole bunch of examples, but I'd love for you to share one or two.
And what's interesting is we're having people who have always had the ability to step forward, step forward. Now we're giving them pathways to do that. So the head of our call center, Carrie, is fantastic. And she's now in this, we call this meeting of 8. You know me, man. I like having weird names and stuff. So now it's the 4 ops leaders. And by the way, I'm considered one of the ops leaders. How weird is that? So there's 3 people in operations. One's in charge of food, 2 over ops. One's going to be the future CEO, and me. So we meet every Monday, every Monday, every Monday, every Monday. And we're talking about the business, the next level down. The meeting of 8 is Carrie, Joe, John, and Tracy, who are that next level of people. And Carrie says, I think there's a disconnection in our communication process. And everybody goes, oh, yeah, preach. And like every company. She goes, I want to get people together, and this is how I'm going to do it. And she did it. So now she has a room of 18 people. And she started it this Monday, and she revamped a process we used to do years ago. Years ago, we'd get people together, and the executives come in. And once the executives came in the room, everybody stopped talking. So now I said, he goes, hey, I'm going to come to your meeting. I told all the execs, you're not allowed to go. You can't go. And Carrie says, I don't want you there. Just going to have to trust us. She had her first meeting. In the first meeting, there were 4 critical business items that were about to launch, and people didn't know it, and it was part of their job. They stopped. They talked it out. They left the room. And her only ground rule was, we're not here to solve. We're here to inform. That's radical, man. Because what's funny is solving happens outside the room. When you keep trying to solve it in the room, you can't. I need to go back to my little hut and do my thing. I am so excited because now we're doing it right. So what it meant was right people in the room, not everybody in the room. Set the ground rule of inform versus act. Act when needed. Or do you have what you need, Jason? Do you got it? Can you run with it now? And here's what's funny. None of the people in the room report to Carrie.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of eliminating the whole you report to me is no, you're connected to me. And my role is to make you succeed in what you do. So I think it will get to our front line in our stores. We're not there yet. But once we get it to our stores, I think we're going to see our managers in our stores go, oh, thank you. This feels so much better. They're great producers. One of the real eye-opening things from a collaborative model that's really flipping the company around is if it's a productivity-first model, your company is going to be limited by how much you can produce. Time, resources, revenue, on and on and on. If you focus on people who produce, there's no limit. So focus on your people, allow them to produce, equip them to produce, and watch what happens. And people are jumping in.
Mm. When you shared another example when we were checking in about that just highlighted that the other thing that you've seen is people are starting to like raise like voices that maybe you wouldn't have heard in the past, or raising, like they'll put their hand up and offer a point of view or a feedback or a perspective that maybe you would not have heard in the past, that's leading to better decisions too.
Yeah, it's a great check-in. We tried to, I don't want people to think like we're this magical kingdom. The difference between our company and others is we'll try it. Because we've gone to the road where, hey, this isn't working. So we tried the Adobe check-in process, which is brilliant, by the way. And it didn't work at all. Because it didn't work for us. We didn't LaRosa-fy it enough. And I was in a check-in with Michael, the CEO, and he says, hey, Steve, you've got a lot of ideas, and I like some of them. And I go, yeah. He goes, does it make you mad? I go, you like some of them. How cool is that? You hear that language now everywhere. Hey, a lot of ideas. I like some of them. And people aren't upset, but now they're allowed to share their perspective, allowed to share their voices and their concerns. They don't get whacked for it. It's expected. And what's really fascinating is for those that are agenda-driven people, and I mean by like I have a personal agenda, we get my way.
Sure.
That kind of disappears because you need to be able to carry the room and you can't. So now we're getting more holistic decisions. And what's funny, so many people want buy-in, but you don't allow for it. You have to have the environment that says, hey, everybody had a chance to talk. We're going this way. It doesn't mean everybody's going to agree with you, but they'll get there. It's true consensus building, and it's back to this collaborative model. I learned so much because I'm around people who aren't like me. And that just, it works.
Well, I think the caveat on that is that you can only learn or benefit from being around people who aren't like you if they are willing to share their ideas and their perspective and their experience. If they're not, then you lose the opportunity.
Right. Real quick story that's not about, upper level people, although it happened in the team and I lost my mind. I couldn't believe it. Back when the Bengals were in the Super Bowl against the evil, hated Chiefs, we have to just say that.
I sign on that.
It was the first time we'd been in the Super Bowl in, 40 years. And one of the people at the exec team says, hey, I think we should close our pizzerias on Super Bowl Sunday. Now, in our pizzerias, Halloween's the number one day in the year by far. I mean, it's the biggest sales day of the year. The second one is the Super Bowl, whether we're in it or not. I mean, people want to get food and watch a game or watch some awful halftime show. But when they did it, I said, well, why would we want to close? He says, well, don't you think it's weird that we get to go home and watch the game, but our team members don't? And I said, go with that. Help me with that. He says, it just doesn't seem right. We say we're people first, but you got to work when I get to go home? I don't want to do that. So the company rallied around. We had to sell this to our franchise owners. Okay, our franchise owners, you're taking money out of their pocket, or so they think. So we made the decision. We said we're going to close at 6:00 so people could get home. I had somebody not in the room say, well, what if they don't watch the game? And I go, you're what? Stop it. Had to correct them like, I don't know that you're watching the game, so just cut it out. We went to the pizzerias, our company-owned pizzerias, and took crumble cookies to them to say thank you. So all the exec team, every one of us got in one or two places. We took cookies there, thanked the team members. The team members like, hey, thanks for coming out here. Would you please leave? And I go, why? And our point of sale system was printing tickets like it was Wall Street. Chick, 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 chick. And I go, what's going on? And here's what was fascinating. We found that our guests found out this because we made a big announcement on social media, made a big press. Hey, we love you, but we want our people to be back. We're in the Super Bowl, man. We want the Bengals to bring it home. It was the highest selling sales day in the history of our company. Never would have happened. Never would have happened 4 years ago. So we're making business-related, people-first decisions that are changing our team members, our culture, and our business. I don't understand why our peers continue to keep saying, I'm going to fight the wall, tip the windmill,
Yeah.
Instead of saying, here's the environment for these types of things to happen. We've closed now the last 3 years on July 4th. What's the big deal? We're a restaurant. We lose business if we close. It affects our bottom line. Our team members are out of their mind. They can't wait for July 4th to come. They think it's great. July 3rd, they're packed. And we sell like crazy so that they can be with their families. I think we make this way too hard. And those are some examples I wanted to make sure you had outside the executive.
No, I love that. And thank you for that. That's what a great example. And I think increasingly too, the market rewards businesses for putting their people first. Not always, but often that is the case. I am curious. So I'm gonna step back a minute and think, okay, back to the person whose head started to vibrate as you were telling some of these stories. Because if I'm captive inside of an organization that is still very old school and very traditional and very top down, what you're talking about resonates. It makes sense. But I don't have a CEO who's going to get it, or I don't have an executive team who's going to get it. But I want to see if I can maybe bring some of this to my team or to other teams within the organization. What would be some recommendations or advice you have for that person who is like, yeah, this makes a ton of sense. I think we need more collaborative leadership. Where do I start?
In mirroring. And by mirroring, I mean, you got to have people see themselves in this situation. Okay, so here's a business case. I need your help, Jason. Hey, you're my boss, top down, tight, structured, bureaucratic. And I go, I need your input on something. Can I try something out on you? And you go, yeah, here's a case scenario. I really need your input. How do you think this would go? And they go, you're seeking my input? And man, people, wow. They love it. Now, isn't it cool that I seek your input, but I don't see you seeking others' input? Did this help you? Did you enjoy doing this? Did you feel valued? And truly, I'm going to take what you said. I'm not just jacking you around. What if we mirrored this and had this with others? It's slow, it's incremental, and it makes a difference. It's like putting cracks in a wall. You cannot do this overnight. I'm not a model person. Models, you can take components of models from all over and make it work at your company. But you can have interactions every day, bit by bit, to move the wheel. And honestly, if you change it this much, your company's better. Now, it's tedious, hard work that never stops. That's the hard part of this. But if you don't have those tough conversations as an HR leader, you're responsible for the direction and future of your company through other people.
Yeah.
If you don't help them do that, you're missing out.
Well, and it seems, as I'm listening to you too, another opportunity is, if you're an HR leader, one of the things I always thought about when I had my HR teams over the course of my career was like, I maybe can't overnight change the culture of the organization. And the reality is, depending on the leadership situation, I may never be able to change the culture of the organization. But what I can do is change the culture of my team. And my team then starts to interact and spread and show a different kind of culture other places. And so, like, one of the things maybe sort of taking what you just said and playing that out is like, if I'm the leader, if I'm leading an HR team, perhaps I say, you know what, we're going to go to a different model for our team meetings. Let's try something different, right? Let's have a facilitated meeting. I'm going to ask our L&D person, who is a master facilitator, to be the facilitator of our meetings so that I'm not shutting down conversation. And then I'm thinking about making sure every voice is heard. Or you can put down, I'm just thinking of ways that I could take what you just talked about and bring into my meeting. Because, Steve, does it make sense that I think you have to, with something like this too, you kind of have to practice it and feel it and understand it probably before you can lead it.
Yes, I agree. Let me give you a non-LaRosa's example. Michelle Griffith, she's a great HR person. She moved from Colorado to Cincinnati to work at Great Wolf Lodge. Now, Great Wolf, hospitality industry, just like what we do. I've been running a roundtable here in Cincinnati for 25 years. I've known her through SHRM. We've met at conferences because she was willing to get out from her desk and learn other things. She could never get the resources inside, didn't have the money for it, didn't have the team for it. Goes to Great Wolf Lodge, has a team, brand new team. Writes me and says, hey, I'm in Cincinnati. I'm like, yeah, Michelle, that's awesome. She goes, when's your roundtable? I'm bringing my entire team. So they left the building as a team. Great Wolf Lodge still stayed in business and was open, and spent an hour of development on her people. She just got promoted within a year. Now she's going to Virginia Beach to their Great Wolf Lodge. In a year, new guy comes in. The team goes, hey, Robert, we want to go to the round table. What's the round table? He goes, you got to go. It's fun. So they're taking the message, but it's absolutely through experience. We always learn better through experience. It's not new.
Right.
It's just we didn't allow it.
That's right.
If you allow it, then you can have that facilitated meeting in your department. It will change how you do business. It trickles through the company.
It certainly does. Be the example, right? Be the example first. All right, two more questions for you. Two sort of big questions. First one is, what is a big challenge or obstacle that you're wrestling with at work right now?
Making this work happen is painful because people hold on to old models. I love them dearly. As people, we're wonderful. But when you work in a company of doers and you're a thinker, and I don't, again, mean this categorically or discriminatory, or it's just who we are.
Right.
When I go, hey, today we're going to think about this. I had a guy come out of the meeting and go, so what do I do with it? Well, our job was to think today. I'm tapping into your brain. Well, this is a waste of time. I go, is it? And so chipping away at that can get very tedious. You can lose interest. You can lose energy. One of the challenges that you and I have talked about for years is not new initiatives, but sustainability of those initiatives. Too many companies just introduce and introduce and introduce and introduce. We're not doing that. We're starting at a base and we're building and building and building. But while we build, we sustain. And if we don't sustain, or we pivot or get nimble and move. But sustainability is the key in order to make all this happen.
How do you stay on, how do you like keep yourself on track when you are feeling the grind of like, okay, I'm going to say the same thing for the 482nd time in the last 3 months? Like, how do you keep yourself focused on that?
We introduced something new too that's going to supplement this, because you get tired of beating your head against the wall, as do other people. I don't want people to get the misconception that it's me. It's not. I try and get a new pricing system on the menu. Beat my head. There's all kinds of business things. We started a new thing called 1+1 conversations, not one-on-one, 1+1. So now you work for me by role. But what happens is I have you and Susie together. And together we have conversations about you. And you tell us, how's it going? How's it not going? Where you're frustrated? How this stuff is nonsense, whatever it is. So we put into a development initiative by having 1+1s on a regular basis. And they're fascinating. And it's my version of whatever you call a performance management system or a check-in process, 1+1s. Because the one-on-ones allow the person at the top or the person with more authority to direct, to dominate, to distract, to limit. You can't do it with two people in the room. So it's working. Without that model, trying with it, or that approach, I should say it's not a model. Without that approach, we kept hitting walls. I mean, just wall after wall after wall. I did the first round, just me with people, and I'm like, this is cool, but what if I'm not here? So I'm going to have me and Jason talk to somebody. And it works. But we had to have a method out. We couldn't keep doing the same thing.
So just to be clear, so there's 3 people in the room. Mm-hmm. And so it's you and so would it be, is it normally, I just want to understand this because this is novel and interesting. So you have 2 people in the room. I'm assuming one of them is one of them a direct report of another person in the room, or it doesn't matter? It can just be 2 people.
They're not a direct report. So it's me and the EVP of operations, Michelle.
Okay.
She's a woo like I am on StrengthsFinder. She's a people person. Okay. And so I go, Michelle, we're going to meet people. So she and I met all of the GMs. Their direct reports are our district managers. But she and I sat down with the GMs because they need an audience. Because if I'm sitting down with my boss, audience is over. The same as the CEO running the meeting.
Sure.
Not that the CEO can't, but I'm not getting the CEO to participate. I need him to participate.
Yeah.
So I facilitate. So same thing. So we sit down and we did it. Now for the exec team, I said, Michael, I want you as the CEO to sit down with each member of the executive team and tell them thank you. Thank you for who you are and thank you for what you do. But tell it from your heart, not mine, yours. I said, they're going to wonder why I'm at every one. I said, but you know what? I'm the chief people officer and I'll pull that card very rarely. But now I'm here for a reason.
Yep.
Jason, he thanked people and people cried.
Awesome. So simple.
Yeah. And you do that. And now tell me what your input is. Give me your ideas. What do you think about the direction of the company? Do you have any concerns? And you see these great people just relax and go,
Yep.
So that is going to help us get through the walls, because we're going to keep hitting walls, but we have to keep doing this 1+1 as the method through.
I love it. 1+1, new thing for me today. I love that. And I love the name. You are the master of names. So here's the last question for you, or the last, I guess, thinking question for a thinker. When you think about work 5 years from now, this is a crystal ball question. 5 years from now, work broadly, what is one thing you hope will be different about work in 5 years than it is today?
I have a large concern about people first companies not really being people first. So even some of the behemoths that are out there, there are horrible stories about who are generating giant amounts of revenue and people are turning on them, their own employees. Since we're going to be at a limited workforce for the rest of whenever, because we didn't produce enough children, just be honest, we have to be nimble and be people first and not just something on a wall. I'm really concerned, and I'll give you a good example. There's a real unfortunate example here in Cincinnati. There's a company called 𝗿𝗃𝗃's. 𝗿𝗃's is a restaurant, big boy, hamburgers, been around, I think, 75, 80 years, bought by a private equity firm. And in the last 2 months, they've closed 35 locations because of rent not paid. Rent. So they have a whole business issue. I don't know what it is. But because they've turned into this financial model only, a 75-year company is going to be gone soon. In 5 years, if we keep doing things, we generate revenue. We do well, you know. The other part I would put to this is for years we keep saying HR needs to know the business. That's stupid. It's dumb. That's too surface level. If you're not really a business person who's trying to move the company forward, then you're not really doing everything you should. And I'm afraid if HR people keep being fringe people, then I can replace you with AI today, if not yesterday. So as a profession, we need to be in the trenches on everything and leading. Without that, I think companies are going to struggle. So they need strong people leaders to lead this people first thing.
I love that. Call to action is what that sounds like to me. So all hands on deck, to save work and save organizations. That's the beauty of it. Is it like if we save the people and we put the people first, the people will save work and the work will save our organizations. So it's interesting. We just can't quite figure out how to make that work. Some companies are. But not enough. Not enough. Well, as we close our conversation, Steve, I want to end with asking you for a one-word check out. So in one word, how are you feeling as we wrap up our conversation today?
Energized.
My one word is smarter. I always feel smarter when I talk to Steve Browne about this work. So thank you for that. I'm hoping that many other people are feeling the same right now. So if people want to find you, if they want to connect with you for whatever reason, to invite you to come speak to something, because you obviously love that, or just to connect and ask you questions, where can people connect with you?
I'm on every social platform, even the ones that people are abandoning. And this is why. And I just want to say this real quick. I'm there for people. And there's a few I'm going to judge and see what I'm going to do. But here's the thing. LinkedIn, cool. X, cool. Facebook, cool. Instagram, cool. Threads, cool. Haven't checked out Blue Sky yet, but I'm gonna. Or people can email me, and I mean that genuinely. We can be old-fashioned. Jump on a phone call. Do I give you my email here, or do we do it in the notes?
You can if you want. I can also put your email in the show notes if you'd like.
Yeah. It's S Browne with an E at LaRosa's, LAROSAS.com. And the thing you need to know, and Jason knows this, if you reach out, I will connect with you. It's not a game. It's very legit with me. I want to help people succeed.
You will. And I've watched you do it for, I don't know, probably close to 20 years now. And so you are the real deal, and you invest in this profession in a way that few do. And so thank you for that. I reach out, connect with Steve, follow him on LinkedIn. He has an enormous number of followers there because he puts out great stuff. Go to Amazon. If you can type in Steve's name, you will find his 3 books. They pop up, the first 3 things. It's just Steve Browne with an E. So at the end, so remember to do that. I'll also put links on where to find Steve's books in the show notes. So Steve, thank you for joining me. This was energizing and amazing as always. I always love chatting. So thank you for making the time.
Thanks. It's so great to catch up with you. Made my day.
And thank you for listening. I hope you can take some insights. In fact, I would say if you can't take some insights away from this conversation to do better, then I don't think you've listened closely enough. You should go back and listen again, because there's a lot of good stuff in here that you can take back and start using right away to have bigger impact in your organization. And please remember to check in with the people that matter most to you. Maybe the most important thing that you can do today. Until next time.